green-coated fairy. I'd skip all the ocean to dear Tipperary, where all the young fellows were blithesome and merry. Well, here I lament my sweet Peggy O'Rafferty.
The Scots, originally Irish,
but by now Scotch,
were at this time inhabiting Ireland, having driven the Irish Picts out of Scotland, while the Picts, originally Scots, were now Irish.
Living in brackets.
And vice versa. It is essential to keep these distinctions clearly in mind. And verse.
Please. Farewell to old Ireland, the land of my childhood, which now and forever I'm going to leave. Farewell to the shores where the shamrocks are growing. It's the bright spot of beauty and the home of the brave.
Paddies. We need them for the harvest and the tatty lifting. Then back hame they gang to Donegal, taking their thieving ways with them.
I go without the heart to go, to kindred that I hardly know. Drink, neighbour, drink a health with me. Farewell to barn and stack and tree. But a different breed for us, babbling airs, my airs, and worshipping the Pope. And those Scots, no like the Bible believing Ulstermen, we're a godly people.
When I was young and tender, I left my native home, and oft to old Scotland I started out to roam.
It's just sixpence on the boat if you sleep on the deck. I'm no fit to bide here, let them gang to Glasgow. You're taking your work.
Friends, please. These are people like us, poor working people. Don't let the wealthy divide us.
Locusts, rats, vermin, they spread disease, a lower breed. In 1842, I left the home my feather knew, but it's this to the luck that brought me through to working on the railway. Chase them out, burn the huts, filthy cholera hovels.
This is a new age, gentlemen, and we must look forward. The cotton mills and mines need more labour, and that must come from somewhere. The Irish poor and the Highlanders will work for lower wages, and they must be accommodated.
The influx of such labourers will set the cause of improvement back for a generation. They have no education. Irish baiting. It's a new kind of sport on Saturdays, after a few drinks.
Well, a man's a man. They're only looking for work. Listen to their songs.
I mean, who're your head man, paddy lover?
Out of Ireland have we come. Great hatred, little room, maimed us at the start. I carry from my mother's womb a fanatic heart. Green-coated fairy, I'd skip all the ocean to dear Tipperary, where all the young fellows were blithesome and merry. Well, here I lament my sweet Peggy O'Rafferty. How could I bear in my bosom to leave her? In absence I think her more lovely than ever. With thoughts of her beauty I'm all in a fever, since others may woo my sweet Peggy O'Rafferty. Are modest and bonny, but here every Jenny has got her own Johnny. And though I might call them my jewel and my honey, my heart is at home with sweet Peggy O'Rafferty. Wistful I think on my dear native mountains, their green shady glens and their crystalline fountains. Ceaseless I heave the deep sigh of repentance that ever I left my sweet Peggy O'Rafferty.
Until the 1840s, Irish emigration to Scotland was accepted as part of economic life, along with prejudice and occasional frictions. The Irish famine was a game changer, a catastrophic event. In 1848, over 1,000 Irish people were arriving in Glasgow every week, fleeing starvation.
Ireland is threatened with a thing that is read of in history and in distant countries, but scarcely in our own land and time. Famine. Whole fields of the root have rotted in the ground, and many a family sees its whole provision for the year destroyed.
The hunger taught them, once and for all, that they must go out from the dear and familiar places.
We're worked harder and worse treated than slaves in the colonies. When we are sick, we must die on the road. We're getting worse and worse every day, and the landlords are kicking us out of every little holding that we have.
Famine, pale, gaunt, ghastly, is stalking throughout Ireland, withering up men like the flowers of the field, consuming millions of human beings with the breath of his mouth, and pestilence is following fast behind him to devour what he leaves.
What the devil do we care about you and your black potatoes? It was not us that made them black. You will get 2 days to pay the rent, and if you don't, you know the consequences.
Rotten potatoes and seaweed, or even grass, properly mixed, affords a very wholesome and nutritious food. We all know that Irishmen can live on anything, and there's plenty of grass in the field should the potato crop fail.
The streets are thronged with moving skeletons. The fields are strewn with dead.
If a country be made too hot to hold its inhabitants, they will be willing even to throw themselves into the sea.
The real difficulty lies with the people themselves. Their idleness and helplessness can hardly be believed.
Starving people thrust their babies into the arms of traveller families. They knew how to survive living rough on the land and poaching.
People were starving in the midst of plenty. Every tide carried from the Irish ports corn sufficient for the support of thousands of Irish people. Emigrants crowded onto decks beneath which were holds full of food.
If the people are forced to consume their oats and grain, where's the rent to come from?
1.5 million men, women and children were carefully, prudently and peacefully slain by the English government. They died of hunger in the midst of abundance which their own hands created.
The dances have lost their vigour, the wakes have no joy in them, and the glad war cries of the factions are heard no more at the fairs.
The land of song was no longer tuneful, or if a human sound met the traveller's ear, it was only that of the feeble and despairing wail for the dead.
The Irish invasion of Scotland is destined to be the best thing that's happened to Scotland for over 200 years at least.
Your mother too, God rest her soul, fell on the stony ground. She fainted in her anguish, seeing desolation round. She never rose, but passed away from life to a mortal dream. She found a quiet grave, my boy, in dear old Skibbereen. And you were only 2 years old, and feeble was your frame. I could not leave you with my friends, for you bore your father's name. I wrapped you in my coat of moor, in the dead of night unseen. I heaved a sigh and bade goodbye to dear old Skibbereen. Oh, Father dear, the day will come when in answer to the call, all Irish men of freedom stern will rally, one and all. I'll be the man to lead the band beneath the flag of green, and loud and clear we'll raise the cheer, revenge for Skibbereen!
Between 1841 and 1851, the Irish population of Scotland had increased by 90% and now formed over 7% of the total. And people kept coming for the rest of the century. 2 and then 3 generations formed, making the Irish a settled community, concentrated in particular areas and distinguished by culture, speech, religion, and education.
Some have been surprised by discovering that the emigration has by no means decreased in the last couple of years. This is a time of hope, we are told. Has not England done wonders for Ireland?
Even if the remembrance of the hunger has grown less vivid, and that is open to doubt, for this is a people that lives much in the past, its effects have increased.
The men of my own stock, bitter bad they may be, but at least they hear the things I hear and see the things I see. And whatever I think of them and their likes, they think of the likes of me.
Fusion of the Scots and Irish will remain impossible, just as it was in Ireland. This is the menace of the Irish race to our Scottish nationality.
No one comes to Scotland without some kind of family or village connection. Everyone has somewhere to go, people to meet, someone to contact, and that gets them a place to stay and an opening to work.
People followed the work. Textiles and agriculture in the southwest, iron and steel in Coatbridge, jute mills in Tayside, shale mines in West Lothian, and everywhere spreading railways. You can map the movement of people west and north following the work. From Tullabuddy to Brora, Irish muscle became Irish settlement.
And in Scotland, the Irish stuck together and helped each other, and that rubbed off at home too.
The Irish in Glasgow are not amenable to the influence of the environment. They find it difficult to acquire self-respect or perseverance and remain mere labourers as their children do.
Then I went north to Scotland, to Glasgow on the Clyde. I met with some young lads. They said, "Celtic's our side. All our folks are from Ireland, the island of the green, a country we love, but a place we've not seen."
Everywhere in the civilised world, the qualities of the Irish are known, and though they are frequently made fun of, they are valued and respected.
The Scots are a dying people. They are being replaced in their own country by a people alien in race, temperament and religion, at a speed which is without parallel in history outside the era of the barbarian invasions.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from the northern highlands to the western islands, from the hills of Kerry to the streets of Derry. This land was made for you and me.
They remain a people by themselves, segregated by reason of their race, their customs, their traditions, and above all, their loyalty to their church. And gradually, and inevitably, they are racially and socially dividing Scotland.
And the Orange Order has continued to grow, in part due to the ever-increasing flow of Ulstermen into Scotland, but also as native Scots react to the growing number of Roman Catholics competing for jobs in the industrial centres. And as Catholics were granted more and more concessions by successive Liberal governments,
The wisest solution to the Scots-Irish problem is undoubtedly the assimilation of both races. The perfervid Scot will hesitate to blend his national characteristics with what he considers to be an inferior race, while the perfervid Irishman will very soon tell him that he will not sell his nationality for a mess of potage.
Catholic cats eat the rats.
Bonny dogs eat the frogs.
2 for tuppence halfpenny.
Where
Did you go to school?
Bully or a tin, or an old tin can.
The First World War seemed for a time as if it might unite all parts of Great Britain and Ireland. Irish and Scots flocked to volunteer, but in 1916, almost overnight, the Easter Rising executions opened up a new political chasm. Irish and Catholic came to mean nationalist, and so disloyal. Every parish school in Scotland had taught the Protestant Reformation, Scotland's progress since the Protestant Union and the British Empire. The war was to defend empire, and afterwards, through depression, the growing Labour Party offered a different narrative that included Irish Catholic communities. Succeeding generations of Irish Scots voted Labour. After the war, fascist movements such as Protestant Action here in Edinburgh fostered sectarianism. A Eucharistic Congress was held in 1935 in the capital city in face of Protestant riots and intimidation. As Catholic communities progressed, especially through thriving schools, the Presbyterian churches united to defend the Protestant nation. Not till World War II did public hostility subside and a new era begin for modern Scotland. Yet in many places, sectarian prejudice remained the residual or default position. Where did you go to school? Are you a Billy or a Tim?
Your mother too